There is a 321-meter tower standing in the Arabian Gulf right now, with no land underneath it. Not no land you can see, no land, period. Three years before construction even started, this entire site was open water. No rock, no island, no ground, just sea. By the time this building opened, it was the tallest hotel on Earth. Built on an island that humans manufactured from scratch in 5 years for $1 billion. This is how they did it. Pile by pile, pour by pour, panel by panel. And if you want more builds like this broken down step by step, subscribe now because we're going deep. 1994, the location is marked with nothing but buoys, 280 meters off the Dubai coastline. There is no island, no foundation, no pile. Just open water in the Arabian Gulf. The same water that had been there for thousands of years. Sheikh Mohammed wanted one image, a single building the world would recognize before it recognized Dubai itself. Not a tall building, not a landmark among landmarks. One shape that could stand for an entire city that, at the time, most of the world couldn't place on a map. In 1993, architect Tom Wright sketched the answer on a napkin-sized concept drawing. The shape of a dhow sail, one of the oldest forms in Arab seafaring, billowing out against the wind. It was simple enough to recognize instantly and unusual enough that nothing else on Earth looked like it. Atkins took that sketch and turned it into an engineering brief. Murray and Roberts and Al Habtoor Engineering built it. 2,000 workers, $1 billion. 5 years. And before a single structural beam went up, the ground itself had to be manufactured from the seafloor, from nothing, in open water, building ground from nothing. July 8, 1994. A pile-driving barge anchors over open water and rigs its hydraulic hammer. This is pile 1 of 230. Each pile 40 meters long, 1.5 meters in diameter. Bedrock sits more than 180 meters down, too deep to reach. So these are friction piles, gripping the sand along their entire length instead of resting on rock below. 2 rigs work simultaneously, driving pile after pile into the seabed. Temporary sheet piles ring the footprint of the future island, holding back the Gulf while the real island builds inside them. Rock buns go in on both sides. The edge has to survive 100-year storm waves. Concrete armor blockers go up around the perimeter. The first time this technique had been used in Gulf construction. Built specifically to absorb wave energy instead of fighting it head-on. Every pile is load tested before anything else happens. 1 weak pile and 70,000 tons shifts. With all 230 piles driven, the seafloor is transformed, but there's still no land. Hydraulic fill, sand and water, gets pumped between the sheet pile walls, displacing the sea. Workers check fill levels every hour. Too fast and the sheet piles buckle. Too slow and the schedule collapses. Over weeks, the slurry settles and drains. For the first time, land appears where there used to be only sea. Vibratory compaction probes drive into the new fill. Loose, waterlogged sand can't carry a skyscraper, so this forces it dense. Armor rock and concrete honeycomb blocks, again, a first for the region, go in around the island edge, letting wave energy bleed through instead of slamming into it directly. The seawall rises 7.5 meters above sea level, tall enough that a 100-year storm can't reach the lowest floors. Drainage pipes get buried in the fill to manage groundwater. 3 years. That's how long it took to build ground that, in 1994, did not exist. Every worker who set foot on this island for the first time was standing on seabed that had been rearranged, filled, compacted, and armored specifically to hold up a 321-meter tower. Not reclaimed land in the casual sense, but a purpose-built structural platform disguised as an island. The raft foundation. Every one of the 230 pile heads gets trimmed to within 5 millimeters of the exact design level. because the raft above needs to sit perfectly flat. Blinding concrete covers the full base. The surface workers will stand on, and structurally part of the build itself. A waterproof membrane gets heat welded over the entire footprint. It has to resist the Gulf pushing water upward for the next 100 years. Raft formwork goes up around the perimeter to hold 70,000 tons of concrete. Hundreds of workers tie rebar across the full footprint, wrapping every single pile head so the raft grips all 230 piles and shares the load between them. Then the pour begins, 70,000 cubic meters of concrete, and it does not stop. Vibrators run through every section. A void in this raft would be a structural fault the building lives with forever. Through the night shift, the pour continues because any interruption creates a cold joint, a permanent weak plane in the foundation. Laser-guided screeds drag the surface flat, setting the exact plane every column in the building will rise from. Cooling pipes are cast inside the raft itself. Concrete generates heat as it cures, and without active cooling, it cracks from within. Temperature gets logged every hour, kept below 70 degrees Celsius, with cold water running through the pipes for weeks. Wet burlap covers the surface. Too fast to cure, and it shrinks, too dry and it cracks. Water stop joints are cut at calculated intervals so the raft can expand and contract with temperature without failing. More than 70,000 tons of concrete poured in one continuous operation on an island that didn't exist 3 years earlier, and the building itself hasn't even started. Column starter bars get drilled and grouted into the raft at exact survey points. An epoxy coating seals the entire surface against a century of seawater and salt air. The raft is complete, 230 piles below, 70,000 tons above. 2 years of pure sea work, driving piles, building an island, pouring a foundation, just to reach the point where an actual building could begin. Nothing visible to a tourist standing on the beach yet says hotel. What exists right now is a flat, waterproofed concrete platform sitting in the Gulf, and that's the part almost nobody ever sees in photographs. The tower rise above. Now the hotel itself begins. Jump form formwork assembles at the core and will climb the building floor by floor. No scaffolding from ground level to the top at any point. The first core wall pour goes in. Every floor, every future load, every storm force this building will ever face routes through what's being poured right now. The jump form jacks itself up after each pour, lifting workers with it as they build. Table forms, each 18 meters long, fly into position with no shoring from below. They hang directly from the wall. Post-tension tendon ducts run across every slab, re-engineered by Mainhart International for less steel and a faster build cycle. After each pour, steel strand threaded through those ducts gets stressed from the slab edge, locking the concrete into permanent compression. Pour, stress, strip the forms, fly them up to the next floor. Workers repeat that cycle 56 times. Anchor plates for the future exoskeleton get cast directly into the core walls, precisely located, once, forever. Service sleeves for pipes, cables, and ducts are cast through the walls now because cutting them in later would weaken the structure. Halfway up, the V-shape becomes unmistakable from the air. The sail fabric hasn't arrived yet, but the shape already reads true. At 250 meters, workers pour the final core walls, the Gulf stretching 400 meters in every direction, nowhere to step back to for a wider view. The jump form strips for the last time. The core now stands 321 meters above the sea, 130,000 tons of raw concrete. Resting entirely on 230 piles driven into sand, with no steel frame, no fabric, no gold leaf, just a bare concrete spine rising out of the water. Even at this stage, before the exoskeleton and before the sail, the silhouette is already unmistakable against the Dubai skyline. The exoskeleton. 9,000 tons of structural steel arrived by barge. The first exoskeleton beam lifts into position and bolts to the anchor plates cast weeks earlier. Every bolt torqued to exact specification, because this steel isn't decorative. It carries the building's entire wind load. Workers climb the open steel grid with no elevator and no scaffolding, just the frame and a harness over open water. Diagonal cross bracing goes in next to handle lateral wind loads at 300 meters, where Gulf winds are constant and severe. Two workers bolt each brace simultaneously from opposite ends. The frame's stiffness roughly doubles with every brace added. The Al-Muntaha arm extends 27 meters out from the south face, bolted on section by section, 200 meters above the water, engineered to carry the full weight of a restaurant floor, kitchen included, cantilevered over the sea. From the ground, it looks impossibly thin. On paper, it's deliberately over-engineered. The helipad goes in at level 59, 210 meters up. Radial beams bolted to a ring girder. Deck plates fitted, landing circle marked, workers standing the entire time over nothing but open sea below them. The mast top tops out at 315 meters, the last piece of structural steel, with connection points ready for the sail. Wind bracing goes across the open atrium face so it can carry wind loads as if it were fully closed. With the last major panel lifted into place, the steel frame is complete, 9,000 tons of it, bolted piece by piece onto a concrete core that had been standing bare and exposed to Gulf wind for months before the frame ever arrived to protect it. The sail Teflon-coated woven fiberglass, PTFE, gets used on both sides of the fabric. Engineered to survive Gulf sun, salt spray, and 50-degree heat for a century. Every panel is cut to the exact geometry of the curved exoskeleton grid. No two cuts are the same. Edge fittings are crimped onto every panel to carry the full tension load once it's stretched across the frame. The first panel goes up, unfolded on the scaffold, the first piece of the sail on the actual building. In full sunlight, the fabric glows white. At night, it turns the entire tower into a lantern. One material doing both jobs, which was the design intent from the start. Turnbuckles tighten at every corner until the fabric goes taut, and for the first time, the building actually looks like a sail. 12 atrium membrane panels, each double-layered and individually tensioned, face north to keep direct sun out of the interior. Tensioning cables carry wind load from the fabric back into the structure behind it. Workers physically tap every panel surface, because a slack panel that flutters in the Gulf wind will fail within a year. Every joint gets sealed with a specialist compound to stop salt spray from corroding the steel behind the fabric. The final panels go up at the mast top, 300 meters above the Gulf, the image Sheikh Mohammed asked for back in 1993, finally standing over Dubai. At night installation, the building glows for the first time. The Teflon skin turned into a screen lit from inside. Inside, the legend. Atrium elevator shafts go in across 18 floors simultaneously, ready for glass lifts that will climb 180 meters straight up through the world's tallest atrium. 22-karat gold leaf gets applied to every column, pressed on with a brush too fine to handle by hand. Carrara marble covers the lobby floor, every slab veined and matched to its neighbor before the adhesive sets. Inside, it doesn't feel like a building interior. It feels like standing inside a tower of light, 18 stories tall. The hotel holds 202 duplex suites, every one double height, every partition built to acoustic spec. Curved ceiling panels are prefabricated off-site and hung in place. No two panels curve the same way, so no two rooms are identical. Aquarium wall panels go in at 18 centimeters of acrylic, engineered to hold hundreds of thousands of liters of water pressure. Custom carpets shipped from South Africa and India get cut and fitted by hand, corridor by corridor, with no two the same. Chandeliers from the UK get raised by hand winch and wired from scaffolding above. Brazilian green marble goes up on every royal suite bathroom wall, veining matched joint to joint while the adhesive is still workable. Across the building, 1,790 square meters of 24-karat gold leaf is applied one postage stamp size sheet at a time. Mosaic tiles are laid by hand, tile by tile, following Arab astronomy patterns from a full-size template. The Al Mahara restaurant kitchen gets craned in through an opening 200 meters above the Gulf and bolted down completely. Nothing in it can be allowed to shift. The glass elevator cabs go through full travel tests, lobby to top floor, before a single guest ever steps inside one. The atrium fountain gets switched on and adjusted until its water arc hits exactly 42 meters, straight up. The private bridge, the only way onto the island by land, grows outward 280 meters, gets paved, wired for lighting, and finally connects the island to Dubai. Then commissioning, every sprinkler head tested, every fire damper cycled, floor by floor from the basement to the mast top. The main switchgear energizes, protection relays get tested, and the building draws full electrical power for the first time. Every system live at once, all 321 meters of it. Exterior lights get fitted onto the exoskeleton frame and aimed section by section from a barge floating in the Gulf below, adjusted one fixture at a time until the whole building reads correctly at night. Specialist crews descend the entire sail face, top to bottom, washing away 5 years of construction, dust from fabric that will spend the next century facing salt air and desert sun. A room-by-room snag inspection follows. Workers logging thousands of small defects, tradesmen fixing them one at a time, every single item cleared before opening day. December 1st, 1999. The doors open, 5 years, $1 billion, 2,000 workers, 230 piles, 70,000 cubic meters of concrete, 9,000 tons of structural steel. An island built from nothing, holding up a building that would go on to define an entire city's skyline. The helipad at 210 meters has since hosted Roger Federer playing tennis and Tiger Woods teeing off a golf shot. Workers built that deck with bolts fastened in midair over open sea for exactly this kind of moment. The atrium still runs 180 meters up through the same concrete core poured back in 1996, now finished in gold and marble. From the air, it's still the Dow sail Tom Wright sketched in 1993, the entire reason this building exists here, and nowhere else on Earth. Everything in Dubai's skyline today came after the Burj Al Arab. This was the building that came first, a symbol built before the city around it had one, built from the sea, built for the ages. One pile, one pour, one panel at a time. If you want the next impossible build broken down exactly like this, subscribe now. There's a lot more coming.
Modern Dubai, the magnificent Burj Al Arab.